Hi, welcome to Alamo Film Group's Make Your Movie interview series. I'm Susan Wilder, an actress and local resident in the San Antonio area. And I have to tell you, one thing that I love about living in the San Antonio area is the film community that we have. And Alamo Film Group plays a huge part in supporting and promoting some of our local filmmakers. So I'm honored to be a guest host today. We are here at Olla Cafe in the Los Patios Shopping Center. And today our guest is a director, producer, editor, and a photographer who has been working in the film and digital media industry for over 20 years. He is also the founder of 3807 Productions. He's an award-winning filmmaker, Rob S. Garcia. Rob, welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So you've been in the film industry for quite a while now. When did you know and realize that you wanted to be a filmmaker, and what inspired you to do so?
Well, I've always loved film, even as a kid. Some of my fondest memories are going to the Alameda Theater with my parents on Saturday mornings to watch some of Mexico's golden age of cinema that they would have there at La Alameda, downtown San Antonio.
Okay.
And I always loved the visuals that they'd give, the stories. I mean, they were in Spanish, I knew Spanish, but I think it was more the visuals that stayed with me versus, because I was a little kid, but so some of the stories went over my head, but I always loved that visual part of it. And growing up, my sister Victoria would always take me to go see some of the best movies that would come out. Saw The Exorcist as a little kid, scared me, but I still loved it. When I saw Star Wars, same thing, loved it. And I think what inspired me the most was the fact that whenever I saw a film as I grew up, and I started seeing a little bit more films that were more about substance and more about storytelling, that really stayed with me. And in college, I did a little bit of acting. I went to St. Mary's University, and there in college, I started just getting more into the writing portion of it, writing stories, short stories, different things that piqued my interest. And with those stories, I always envisioned them being made into a movie or a short story, things like that.
Well, with all your experience as a filmmaker and someone who's a director and producer and editor and wears multiple hats in the industry, tell us what your favorite part of filmmaking the filmmaking process and why it is.
So I guess for me, I love the whole process of filmmaking, from the writing to the pre-production to the actual production, being on set. Love all that. But I think my favorite part would be being in the editing bay, because in the editing bay is where you mold what you've shot. That's where the story comes alive for me. There's parts when I'm on set and I've seen the actors, doing. I love that. But when you get to the editing bay and you get to see everything, that's when you can start putting things together. And being an editor as well as when I'm on my productions, I start doing the editing as I'm directing. It's like, okay, I know where I'm going to put different files when I set things up. So when I get into the editing bay, it's a little bit easier to formulate, to mold the product or the project into the story that I want. Mm-hmm. And I think would probably be one of my favorite parts of the editing, of the process, filmmaking process, is the editing. You can spend hours in the editing bay. Sometimes you have a scene that you truly love and the actor did their job. It's like beautiful, yet it doesn't work for the scene or for the film, and you have to cut it. Mm-hmm. And that is also one of the worst things that I hate about filmmaking. Yes. Having to make that decision of that your own personal Sophie's choice, where you have to cut your baby or kill your baby because it's not going to work with the film.
Right.
So you got the editing bay can be my favorite part and my worst part. that was
And
about it.
every part of filmmaking, I think, there's such artistry to it, but especially the editing part. It's such an artist's job, I believe. So
Yeah, and I've been lucky to have befriended and worked with some really great editors and a lot of really good composers. Well, one composer in particular who's written a lot of the compositions for my films, and yeah, it's just that's where everything comes together. Yeah, I love that.
that's wonderful. Awesome. Well, do you have any projects that you're currently working on? And
I have a couple. As a photographer, of course, I have a couple of different things that I'm working on, different concept pieces that I'm trying to put together. As a filmmaker, I do have a couple things that I'm working on production. As a filmmaker, you always have different projects, different films in different areas of pre-production or post-production or different things. My next one is a short film that I wrote called Transmute, and it is the story of a young dancer and her fascination with a clown called Putty.
wow.
And hopefully I'll film that at the end of summer.
So
So that's
awesome.
one of the ones, my short films that I'm working on. And then there's a couple of other things that I'm working on business-wise. You know, I have a couple of vignettes and different things like that. I think
Nice.
that'll be my next project. So.
Nice. Well, that is so interesting. I can't wait to see some of those short films you have coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds really great. Well, how can people find your work and what can they do to support you?
Well, people can go to my website, robbsgarcia.com, and that is my artist website, and that has all of, a good portion of my work on there. Some of my photography, some of my films are on there. Some of the trailers for my films are on there. You can also go to 3007 Productions, which is my company website, and if they have a project that they'd like to get produced, or have somebody take a look at it, I'd be happy to do that as well. They can also find me on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, things like that. So they can do that. And basically, by supporting is basically going out to film festivals whenever release, and not just myself, but in the community in general. Going to film festivals and supporting people.
Yeah.
That's probably the best part.
Awesome. Well, what do you like about filming in San Antonio? And is there anything that the city can do to support and help filmmakers?
Yes, well, I love filming in San Antonio. San Antonio is one of my favorite places. I've filmed in other areas in Texas and some other states. But what I love about San Antonio is that it's a small community. And for the most part, the people, and it's been my experience with people that I've worked with, we don't have big egos. We work on each other's projects either. I mean, I've directed some people's projects, I've produced some people's projects, I've had some people produce and direct my projects. And there's not an ego associated with the people that I work with.
Right.
We all work together because we want to tell the story.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the best parts about working in San Antonio. Like I said, I've worked in other areas in Texas that the ego always gets in the way with either the writer or the director. No, this is the way I wrote it, do it this way. Or the director, no, this is my way or the highway.
Right.
That's one of the best parts of filming in San Antonio.
Yes.
And I think for the most part, the city does as much as they can as far as incentives for filmmakers, but I wish they would lower the budget amount to where they will start, giving you those incentives. For the most part, I think my biggest production was a feature film that I did a few years ago that I produced with a good friend of mine called Dora Benya. She wrote and directed Dream Healing. And we had some really good actors. It was a SAG film that we did. So there was a little bit of budget on there, but that's, we weren't, even though we did have a good budget for it, we still weren't eligible for those incentives. And it would have been nice to have been able to receive some of those incentives.
Yes. I know one of the incentives that San Antonio has is the grants that they offer for artists. And you received a grant from the Department of Arts and Culture for your film, I Am San Antonio. And that you received that grant last year, is that correct? 2022. Can you tell us a little bit about that film? Tell us about the process, what the process of applying for that grant was like, and then if you have any advice for other filmmakers in applying for grants.
Well, the city has an annual grant that they do for artists. It's called the Artist Grant. It's their Artist Grant Fund. And that was the 2022 Artist Grant grantee, I guess.
Right.
And I received, the grant is $5,000. You get $4,000 up front when you are selected, and then $1,000 after you complete your project. And you do a public viewing of whatever the project is.
Okay.
And that grant is open up to any type of art. It's from poets to visual artists, painters, musicians, filmmakers. It's open to anybody. My project for that particular grant was I Am San Antonio, which is a short documentary that highlights the people, the unique people and diverse people that make up San Antonio. And it was one that was really near and dear to my heart because I was able to meet and talk to people that I would normally not have talked to. And I was able to show people, or through this film, I was able to highlight people that are often overlooked. You know, yes, we do have some minor celebrities here in San Antonio that get a lot of airtime and different projects, but my goal for I Am San Antonio was to highlight people that make up San Antonio, and if they weren't there, you would miss them because they weren't there.
Right.
Yet you wouldn't make an effort to talk to them or be a part of what they're doing. And you can find that on that particular one has its own website. It's called IamSanAntonioFilm.com, and they can go and see the trailer for the film, and then they can also see some of the longer interviews of each of the people that I interviewed. I also interviewed Councilman Jalen McKee Rodriguez. So he was one of his interviews, a really good one. He just won re-election, which is cool. But yeah, that's one of the films that I'm really proud of right now that I was able to complete because of that service grant, or the artist grant. The process of the grant is fairly, well, it's a little easier now that I've been through it one time. But when you're first starting off, there's a little bit of a learning curve that you got to do because there's a lot of different steps that you have to go through to fill out the form. And the different, because you have to start off with intent to, there's an intent to apply, which is you do that several weeks or a month before you actually get the application to do it, which is, I don't know why you need to do that, but you should just be able to apply
say, hey,
to it.
I'm going to apply, right?
And then there's other different steps within that you have to meet in order to be able to apply for that fund. So that could be a little bit more streamlined, I think.
Okay.
So, but yeah,
Awesome. Well, I am been excited to meet you. I love your aspect of storytelling and being able to tell the human experience. I love that about your work, Rob. And it's been really great to meet you, and thank you for being here. I'm Susan Wilder with Alamo Film Group. Thank you for joining us for our interview series, and we'll see you again real soon.
Hola, my name is Andrea Ley. Welcome to my coffee shop called Oye Express Cafe, a company that specialize in café de olla and traditional Mexican drinks, with the mission to rescue traditional recipes from our ancestors and being a platform for them and Mexican coffee in US. We love to serve you all with our great café de olla and signature drinks made with high quality. Recently, we started selling our star product piloncillo syrup at H-E-B, considered one of the best products in Texas. Olla Express Café is a sensorial experience from the moment you cross the doors of what I really like to call La Casa del Café.